Hey there, how there, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to yet another Cutter Top 10 video to do with college basketball. Of course, I'm rocking the Arkansas Razorback. So, that's what happens. And today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 emotional moments in college basketball history because emotions can either be you laugh, you cry, you like yourself, I don't know. Anyway, there are some massive emotional moments and all that. So here we go. Number 10 is UConn honoring a teammate 2009. UConn always had a strong women's team, kind of akin to, Duke in men's basketball. But anyway, they had a teammate named Jazz Houston who died of cancer. And so they decided to play the season in honor of her and not only won the national championship, but was an undefeated championship, as UConn was prone to do, winning undefeated titles. So they did their job. Number 9 is the highly charged emotions of Magic versus Bird, 1979. The reason why I say that is because, you know, the the college basketball landscape was huge. Back in 1979, there were like TV graphics were different. NBC had the college basketball title, and there were other names and all that. And it was bigger with the advent of just normal over-the-air TV. So anyway, Michigan State with Magic Johnson. What am I thinking? And Windsor, Ontario's own Michael Bergovic came in, and also Greg Kessler came into the final against Indiana State with Larry Bird and a few other people. It's like Indiana State was that good in '79. They were. Larry Bird left Indiana, went to be a garbage man, and then Indiana State picked him up, and they actually were undefeated headed into the tournament. Of course, one of their wins was the quarterfinal win over Arkansas, which pissed me off, of course, being a Razorback fan. But yeah, it was Magic versus Bird, and the TV ratings were so good, it is still viewed as the highest rating of a college basketball final. I know there have been many college basketball finals that have had more viewers than Magic versus Bird, but the fact of the matter is that, you know, everything, yeah, it was an emotional legacy, and Magic and Bird would always be intertwined with each other, especially in the 80s for the Lakers and the Celtics rivalry. Number 8 is Jim Valvano's speech at the ESPYs in 1993. I feel like this is a little too low on the list and all that. But anyway, Jimmy B was known for his 1983 championship, and which we'll talk about that later. But anyhow, Valvano would lose his coaching job because of academic problems. So he would be doing color commentator on ABC and all that. Doing college basketball games, but then he started getting cancer. But thankfully, though, even though Valvano died of cancer, he did make an emotional speech at the ESPY Awards, ESPN's sports awards, which was the first time ever in 1993. Making some laughter. You gotta laugh and all that, and you gotta cry sometimes. And he inspired the sports world with the message: don't give up, don't ever give up. He would die a month later. Number 7 is the gruesome injury of Kevin Ware and how Louisville responded to that in 2013. So the Elite Eight, if memory serves me right, I would say Louisville, Michigan, but I'm probably wrong. But anyway, in 2013, Louisville was in their Elite Eight matchup when Kevin Ware took a jumper, made it, but then came down heavily on his left leg. It was a gruesome leg injury, so gruesome, CBS had to cut away from the aftermath and all that. It was just terrible. He did go on to play basketball, I think, a few years later. But anyway, his teammates rallied around him, and the run to the championship game was fueled by Ware's courage and determination. And the fans would have support, sympathy, and the fact that Louisville won the title. Unfortunately, a few years later, there would be a sexual assault scandal that brought down Louisville, and their title is technically vacant. They only won in NCAA basketball history. Number 6 is Villanova's upset over North Carolina, if you will. A lot of people say, well, that's not an upset. But yeah, Villanova, I mean, it's North freaking Carolina. You know, the school that gave us Vince Carter, the school that gave us James Worthy, and, of course, Michael Jordan. And Villanova brought us Howard Perkins, no, sorry, Howard Porter and Pickney and a few other, Kerry Kittles. They didn't really have the stars from Villanova. Kobe could have been a Villanova guy. But anyway, Villanova would take on North Carolina. North Carolina made an unbelievable, unbalanced three to tie the game, but then Chris Jenkins got the ball with a few seconds left, shot the ball, and it went in the net. And Villanova won their second NCAA title and made themselves kind of a partial dynasty. It was an emotional roller coaster. Number 5 is Steve Alford finally winning the title for Indiana in 1987. So anyway, Steve Alford was a great player. And Indiana was a good team too, but they just couldn't get over the hump to get to the NCAA final. 1986, they were close, but they lost to, I think, Cleveland State. Anyway, coached by Bob Knight, they won the national title. It was more to do with Keith Smart shot, sure, because Keith Smart did hit that running jumper to beat Syracuse. But Indiana and Steve Alford, it was amazing. And, you know, following the victory, Alford and his teammates were weeping and embracing and all of that. As Alford was technically the captain. Although he didn't really have an NBA career, he still had a great shot for Indiana. Number 4 is The Shot by Christian Laettner. This one was big because, you know, Duke and Kentucky played one of the greatest Elite Eight / regional finals ever. As it was a shot for shot, Christian Laettner got a massive technical when he stepped on the back of a Kentucky player. Probably not really on purpose, but nevertheless. Laettner was on fire. He was 10 for 10 from the free throw line and 10 for 10 from the floor, meaning he made all the baskets when he needed to. Kentucky was up by 1 with 1.8 seconds when Grant Hill, yes, not Grant Hill, actually threw a baseball pass. Kentucky did not really guard his pass. Drew Hill, yeah. He threw the ball, and Laettner catched the ball. The presence of mind to bounce the ball once and then turn around jumper over the Kentucky players into the net, and Philadelphia's spectrum went bonkers. And Duke kept their chances to win back-to-back titles alive. And of course, one indelible image was Thomas Hill, number 12, crying as he, the cameras were painting on him. But yet, Laettner's shot was huge, and Duke went on to win their second title. Number 3 is Chris Webber's timeout, 1993. Chris Webber was a pretty good player. Michigan had the Fab Five. And if I can remember this without cheating, it was Webber, it was Jalen Rose, that's the name I got wrong. Jimmy King, Ray Jackson, and Juwan Howard. There we go. I got them all in one fell swoop. But the fact of the matter is that they were all freshmen helping the 92 Michigan team get to the finals. Lost to Duke, no big deal. They were a year better. And then they went to the final against North Carolina. It was a back and forth game. Chris Webber allegedly traveled and the ref missed it. And then he was surrounded by North Carolina players. So he decided to call timeout. He had the chance. But one problem, Michigan didn't have timeouts. So basically, that was a technical foul and North Carolina win the game. Now, you can't really bring yourself to blame C-Webb. I mean, he called the timeout, yes. But, that's what you're prone to do in a situation like this. So C-Webb does his job. And, well, North Carolina won. Webber couldn't believe it. Worst of all was that, C-Webb decided to go to the NBA draft. Orlando drafted him, traded his rights to Golden State for Penny Hardaway, which worked out kind of in their favor. And then C-Webb was a great player for Sacramento and was decent. The only problem was it didn't really count because later on there was rumors about improper boosters, like people who pay for players to come for their team. Like Ed Martin did the job uniting with Weber's family, making sure Weber went to Michigan and all that. Because of those benefits and Weber kind of cheating and lying about it, Michigan had to take down their national championship finals banners and all that. They did that before the NCAA could punish them, but they would have punished them anyway. Number 2 is Lorenzo Charles' game-winning dunk in 1983. North Carolina State weren't really supposed to be in this tournament at all. They had to have won the ACC championship just to get to this point. And they did. They had to fight Pepperdine in double overtime. It was almost over before it started. NC State somehow pulled off Rabbits left, right, and center. They would take on Houston with Faisal and Gemma with Elijah and Drexler. No, wait. Drexler was already drafted. Nevertheless, Houston had Michael Young. But anyway, yeah. NC State versus Houston. They did their job to battle each other. Anyway, it was a tight game, 52-52. Now, back in 1983, there was no shot clock until 1985. But anyway, yeah. North Carolina State knew they had to keep the ball in their possession. And all that. And then Derek Wittenberg put up what seemed to be a shot, but then Lorenzo Charles caught the ball and slammed it down. It was deemed a pass, and if it was deemed in the cylinder, Charles could not have touched it. That would have been offensive goaltending. But the big emotional thing was when Jim Valvano and his joy celebration on the court happened. It was iconic and all that. And the Houston players just couldn't believe their luck. Unfortunately for that school, they have never won the NCAA title. They had a chance last year, but they failed. And the number one emotional moment in college basketball was a massive death, and that was Hank Gathers in 1990. Hank Gathers was a great player. He played for USC. Then he and his teammate, Bo Kimball, decided to leave for Loyola Marymount School in Los Angeles. And they would battle and all that for the LMU Lions. They were really good at scoring points, but giving up points was not the greatest. Hank Gathers was one of the rare players that actually got the scoring title and the rebounding title in college at the same time. Hank Gathers was a pretty good player. Unfortunately, though, he had heart problems and cut back on his medication, which actually became deadly. In 1990, when the West Coast Conference tournament was playing, and Loyola made a bucket, Hank Gathers made it, and then somehow, while playing defense, he decided he collapsed at center court, and it was just terrible. He would die almost instantaneously. Loyola didn't know what to do with their basketball team, whether they should go to the NCAA tournament, which they were given the West Coast Conference title, or basically just say no. They played, and Bo Kimball, every time Loyola played a game in that tournament, his first free throw he would shoot left-handed for Gathers, and Kimball made every one of those, and it was amazing. Loyola did their job. They beat the defending champion Michigan in the second round. They got to the Elite Eight, which wasn't half bad, but unfortunately they fell. It would have been one of the most dramatic moments if Loyola were the champions. But UNLV probably would have had them from Lynch. But anyway, that's what happens. And Bo Kimball honored Hank Gathers and what it might have been if Hank Gathers was healthy and alive. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond at 2.